Episode 33 Boomer Guitar Sessions. This is Rod, and today we're going to be unlocking the CAGED system. Now, what is the CAGED system? It is a rubric guitar educators and guitar players use that takes a difficult problem of not knowing much chords, not knowing how chords and melody are intertwined, chord fingerings and melody and all that kind of business. They become one thing, and double stops and all that. It can be one thing, one big learning thing that makes it, that is extremely helpful in us getting to know how to play all over the fingerboard, not to be limited in any way. It's like if you have a choice, you don't want to be that guitar player that only knows how to play. I can play this G chord, I can play this G chord, or I can play this G chord, and that's all I know. And there's probably a majority of the people in the world are like that. But CAGED system offers a way out of that. So what is the CAGED system? It is a rubric. When I say a rubric, it is, these are the difficult problems. There's difficult problems, and a rubric is a system, the step-by-step system, that like organizing system that you can attack that difficult problem and make it much easier. Make it much easier. So one step at a time, one little thing and one little epiphany at a time. That the CAGED system is like a really, it's pretty easy, and it's super useful in that. So the origins of the CAGED, the ground zero for the CAGED system is the CAGED fingerings that we learn in our first guitar session, in our first guitar lessons. So when you think about it, the first chords you learn are C, then you have your A chord, then you have your G chord, then you have your E chord, then you have your D chord. Okay, and then you probably play a bunch of months learning songs that have the majors and minors of those. You know, those are your cowboy chords, and just tons and tons of months, and that's a thing. Now, what the CAGED system does is it takes that those open chords, and it makes those chords movable. So instead of having just a chord that only works in one position, we take that fingering and we make it into a bar chord. So this is my C fingering, and these are where the open strings would be. Okay, so that is your C fingering of the D chord. Now the A fingering's there, but if we play it in D, okay, you have your D fingering there, or A fingering of the D chord. Okay, so now if we have the G fingering is going to be like this. All kinds of sounds are going to come your way because of this system that are impossible to learn otherwise. Okay, that is your E fingering, which if you know any bar chords, this is one of the ones you learned. Okay, and then there is the D fingering. Now I play the D fingering in two different ways with the CAGED. Okay, so this way, okay, and also as a passing chord where I take this top note and I drop it down to the bottom, so it'd be like this. That's a different voicing of the same CAGED fingering. All right. Okay, so we have this chord, we have this chord, we have this chord, and then we have this chord. All right. Now the deal is that is 5 movable bar chords, movable chords all the way up the neck. So that probably, if you're not into CAGED, that you probably just doubled and almost tripled your guitar knowledge. If you count this passing chord that's tripled your guitar knowledge just in one little concept. And it goes crazier after that. The other thing is, next thing we need to know is CAGED spells out the order of inversion. So after the C fingering is always going to be the A fingering. After the A fingering is always going to be the G fingering. After the G fingering is always going to be the E fingering and D fingering. So if we play say F, there's that, then F fingering, right? Right? So F fingering, which is the E fingering, F chord, E fingering, C-A-G, E fingering, D fingering, okay, C fingering, A fingering, G fingering. So what you should do, just getting started with this, is play those in a couple keys. Say pick 4 keys. Once you get four keys down, 4 or 5 keys, then the rest of them you can kind of do on the fly. So you're learning chords all up and down the fingerboard. You have 5 different things. I always teach my students that if you just know this chord and this chord, they're like 20, at least. We're going to round it to 20 notes that you can root chords off of from here to here. So for every chord shape, that's 20 chords. 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 You can learn chords very quickly this way. So spells out the order of inversion. So if we have your D, all right. Next thing spells out the order of inversion. Now, when going from one chord to the next, you either have a shared finger or a shared cluster of notes for going from chord to chord. So this chord, then the shared finger is going to be this. Okay, the shared cluster is going to be this. Okay, the shared finger is going to be this. The shared cluster is going to be this. The shared, that's the shared finger rather. And the shared cluster is this. Okay, now, I don't know, that makes it easier. So from this chord to this chord to this chord to this chord, either a shared finger or a shared cluster from chord to chord, all the way up to next. All right, next thing we want to check out. That each one of these chords, so if I play this in E, so guys like Jimi Hendrix, what Jimi Hendrix would do was he would intertwine melody and chords. So we're not just dealing with chords, we're also dealing with scale patterns too. So the melody that's inside of each of these that's the melody. All right, so melody and chords. So when we're playing chords, we can do some melodic stuff within the chords. Like I always look at Jimi Hendrix or Joe Pass as models of this. They're not just playing chords, they're playing stuff inside the chords and around the chords and all that kind of stuff. And okay, so that Curtis Mayfield, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Mayer style of chording that everyone stole from Hendrix, except for Hendrix got it from Curtis Mayfield, his black key tuning, but trying to he didn't know it was black key tuning. He's just trying to copy the sound, and you can only do that with CAGED fingerings. Okay. CAGED fingerings applied to scales as well, as I said. Okay. Okay. do real interesting things within a lot of these cage fingerings. Like I particularly like the G and the C fingering, G and the C grip, because these are kind of added chords, and Hendrix does a lot of. Now the next thing you can do, and the clock is off on how many chords we're learning, because so many that has gone past in what we just said. If you learn them on all keys, times 20, I'm not even going to attempt to count. Okay, what we can do. Okay, a little bit of chord knowledge. This is our major triad. This is our major chord. If we lift this finger, this is 20 chords, rounded. That is 20 more chords, which is a major 7. Okay. This is a dominant 7th chord. Okay. This is a 6th chord. Okay. That's like 100 chords or maybe. Okay, so dominant 7th, 6th chord, minor 7th, minor 9, all coming from the same root and relative fingering. Okay, 9th chord, 9th chord. We're up in the hundreds and hundreds. Like just from this one thing, how do we branch out and learn more chords? Minors. All right. So each one of these chord grips can be like the mother chord of a lot of like 20 or so other chords that are coming off the same root. So there's your major, minor, minor 7, minor 7. All right. Minor 11. All right. Minor 13. All right. All kinds of chord possibilities. These will be future lessons in Boom Guitar Sessions. But this is the big organizer. So the cage is the big organizer. All right. That ornamentation. That is Hendrix. That is Hendrix. That is caged. Okay, and knowing it all over the fingerboard, and not being limited. Who wants limitations? I don't. Anyway, last thing we're going to talk about is double stops. Double stops are 2-note voicings, 2-note intervals that go along with chords. So within this, we have this, we have this, we have that. All right. All that music coming from one super organizer. Thank you, Cage Fingerings. As I said, Joe Pass uses it. Lots of people use it. It doesn't matter what style. Those who want to continue learning on through life, and they don't want to be limited. They don't want to be limited in what they can do. That's what this is about in Boom Guitar Sessions. This is Rod.